Hello and welcome back, all my Dragon Ball theorists. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, exploring the idea on what if Cell were able to absorb the androids now, being that we have seen what happened in the Tournament of Power with Android 17 having his massive power boost in Super. How would we even get a Cell into this timeline, and how would he now absorb the androids? I mean, being that 17 alone could now beat Perfect Cell, Boo, and hold his own against the toughest fighters in the multiverse. Well, let me map out the story of not only how Cell would do it, but what the end result would be when the impressive power of Androids 17 and 18 are absorbed after the Tournament of Power. In order to bring this scenario to life of Cell absorbing the androids after the tournament, I'm going to explain how it would actually be possible to happen if they wanted to bring Cell back as a villain. Let's be honest, Perfect Cell was one of my favorite villains. The Android Cell saga was an amazing time in Dragon Ball Z, as some of DBZ's greatest moments happened in this arc. Cell, the androids, and of course the Z fighters all gave us tons of memories. So how do we get Cell back into the picture? Well, anytime you play around with timelines, sometimes you get undesired results. We know Zeno erased Zamasu and the future Trunks timeline. It is important to note, when Zeno erases something, you don't die, you just are no more. You are erased from existence, and Zeno erased everything from existence, as we saw when Goku went back to pick up our happy destroyer of everything to bring him to the present. After all was said and done, we had the problem of Trunks and Mai being in the current timeline that Whis has a solution to. He says he believes it is possible to return to a time in a world before it was erased, which is an alternate timeline. Whis will then go to that future and ask Beerus-sama before he vanishes due to the Supreme Kai's death to deal with Zamasu. Of course, this means that there will be two Trunks and Mais in this future. They agree, and Whis takes off with Beerus-sama to create this alternate timeline for them to return to that is free of Zamasu. Later, Trunks and Mai take off in their time machine, and we have the heartfelt goodbyes, as it is the last time we see them as they head to this timeline to live happily ever after. Or so they think. This timeline is pretty messed up and tampered with now, and to say things have changed is definitely an understatement. As we know in Dragon Ball, you don't have to directly interfere with a timeline to disrupt it. Simply going back in time causes disruption to the timeline as various random changes occur. Example is Android 19 and 20 came first despite no explanation on why they would exist. Also, Android 17 and 18 are inexplicably stronger than the future Trunks remembers of the androids from his future, not to mention Android 16. Now, I don't want to go into the specifics of who came from what timeline and went into this timeline for the sake of this video and going down the rabbit hole of the 7 timelines and different time rings. All you need to know is the basics out there of how Dragon Ball timelines work, which is how Perfect Cell happened the first time. There are alternate timelines created when the use of time travel happens. This is how Cell, in a future without androids, was able to kill Trunks before he went back in time, and use his time machine to go to a timeline where they were alive. I will leave a link in the description that talks about the 7 timelines, and you can read that for fun, or to go slightly crazy on Dragon Ball time travel logic, depending on how much you want to investigate. Now, in this timeline where we have 2 Trunks, 2 Mais, and we save them from Zamasu ever happening, what has changed, you ask? God, I love Dragon Ball timeline madness, and here we have a timeline where the androids are dead, but Cell wasn't killed because he never arrived. Cell was able to stay hidden and lay dormant in his first stage of evolution in a Dr. Gero lab for far longer as he absorbed the cells of the greatest fighters into his being. Now the second Trunks and Mai arrive with a time machine from the Super timeline we are familiar with and love, which will give this Cell that has been in hibernation the perfect reason to now emerge, and also providing the escape route to go to the present timeline and absorb the new improved power of Android 17 and 18. I know what you are thinking, Cell has his work cut out for him now since we have god-level fighters waiting for him. So how will he ever steal a time machine and absorb the androids now? Simple, this Cell that will emerge is substantially stronger than the Cell we saw in DBZ. Remember how the androids in the present timeline were far stronger than Trunks experienced in his timeline? Well, here we go. Furthermore, the gathering device used by Dr. Gero's supercomputer to feed information and DNA into Cell was operating for far longer. It didn't stop at the Trunks and Frieza battle, determining that only Android 17 and 18 were needed to finalize perfection. This supercomputer continued to run for years and learned of different universes and the Super Dragon Balls. It found out about the Kais, Majin Buu, the entire god hierarchy of Beerus and the Angels. This information was made perfectly clear when the second Trunks and Mai from the Super Timeline arrived, and DNA and cell samples were taken from them. They were observed and spied on by Dr. Giro's computer, and the conversation between the two Trunks provided all the information it needed to determine that now is the time for Cell to seek his perfection. So this Cell's purpose isn't just the absorption of Android 17 and 18, but to attain the Super Dragon Balls and overthrow the gods. It is a new Zero Mortal plan with a twist because you stop Zamasu, but inevitably put in motion something just as dangerous. You just can't change the future without severe results to alternate timelines. Now with the ultimate motive and purpose for perfection, Cell begins his assault on this timeline. As mentioned, this first form of Cell is substantially improved and ready from his longer hibernation and gathering of more DNA, except he doesn't want to run a risk yet of fighting a future Trunks with his Super Saiyan Rage form. However, he has devised a very cunning plan, since the heroes of this timeline don't expect anything to ever happen. Cell decides one night that he will invade the Capsule Corp base and take the time machine of Trunks from the Super Timeline. He must then destroy all other time machines and Bulma's lab so he can't be followed by the Super Timeline Trunks. So patiently, Cell must wait till only the current timeline Trunks is around, and killing him is just child's play. He wants to also kill Bulma and destroy all her work, but fortunately she is out with Super Timeline Trunks. Cell decides that it is irrelevant if she lives as long as he destroys all her work. After doing so, he takes off in the time machine, going back in time to the present day Super after the Tournament of Power. The title of this episode would be Cell Arrives Again. We would begin the Cell saga all over, but with a different path this time, since this Cell's purpose is conquering the multiverse. Let me add this disclaimer before the timeline critics weigh in on how what I'm about to say doesn't add up or there is a hole in this plot. Let me tell you, there isn't if you use the Unseen Timeline 4, the Unknown Timeline 5, and the new Timeline 7 that Cell just came from. These timelines just need to be expanded on for the first time in a story, and everything I'm about to say is possible, which is why the writers gave themselves such an easy way to come up with a new story arc if they want like this one. It just has to be written. With that said, back to the story. Despite already being drastically stronger, Cell still needs to begin absorbing humans and life to attain the required battle power he feels is enough to deal with the current Z fighters on Earth and absorb the androids. When Cell arrives, Goku and Vegeta are on Beerus' planet training with Whis, which is typical as they are trying to attain more power, leaving Earth's defense to Ultimate Gohan and Piccolo. Here's where Cell will engage his cunning plan to drastically improve his power enough to be a threat to everyone on Earth. Also, there are new players on the field this time around residing on Earth like Majin Buu, which Cell is well aware of. Cell begins his absorption of a town much like before to further his power, but also as a distraction to the fighters on Earth. Piccolo has seen this before and has an eerie feeling of deja vu, but doesn't understand how it is possible. While Piccolo goes to the lookout to talk to Dende to try and get a grasp on what is happening on Earth, Cell already has his sights on his first major target, Majin Buu. Cell begins his fight with Majin Buu, alerting Gohan that something is wrong as he is sensing all types of familiar battle powers. Cell, aware of this, decides to strike fast using the typical absorption of energy he used on Piccolo like back in the original Cell saga, but this time it is on Majin Buu. He is siphoning immense energy from Buu, almost killing him, but thanks to Buu being so unique, is able to survive long enough till Gohan arrives. Now a completely shocked Gohan, seeing what has transpired, can't believe who he is. Cell tells Gohan that thanks to the second future Trunks and altering his timeline, it allowed him to be born. Now Cell's power has skyrocketed by adding Buu's energy to his, but he must still seek the androids to continue on with his plan. With Piccolo alert to his presence as well, Cell decides to make a quick escape by using a solar flare on Gohan so he may focus on his next target of interest, Android 18. Cell's data has told him that Android 17 is vastly stronger than 18, so now that he has acquired a massive power boost from humans and Buu, he feels that Android 18 is an easy and fast target. As we know, the androids can get much stronger, and this 18 from her performance in the tournament and all the fighting that has happened should be stronger than ever. However, when this Cell arrives, our beloved 18 is just no match for his increased power. 18 is easily absorbed into Cell, transforming him into his semi-perfect form. I feel like calling this his super semi-perfect form, which is vastly stronger than before because of how powerful base Cell was and the added energy from Boo with an improved Android 18. Cell's plans to become perfect and attain the Super Dragon Balls is well in motion. Here is where our heroes will frantically scatter to try and stop Cell. After sensing Super Semi-Perfect Cell's increase in power from absorbing 18, Krillin goes to Bulma to get in touch with Whis to inform Goku and Vegeta what is happening on Earth. Meanwhile, Gohan and Piccolo have to make it to Android 17 before it's too late. Here is where the main fight and last stand before Cell's completion would happen in this story. I would absolutely love a remake of a battle between Android 17 and Piccolo fighting against Cell. Of course, the confidence of 17 should be extremely high because he has trained for over a decade leading up to the Tournament of Power. Without going off into an entire power scaling video explaining how strong 17 is and how it happened, there are great videos out there already that explain how Android 17 was able to compete with Super Saiyan Blue, God of Destruction Toppo, and hang in there versus Jiren. Seththeprogrammer and credible power scalers already made the video. It has been established how incredibly battle savvy and strong Android 17 is with numerous feats of strength. I will link those videos in the description if you are curious for more info in that regard. This is why Cell increases power first with Boo, then absorbing Android 18 to become Super Semi-Perfect Cell. This Cell waited longer and attained more information to gain the DNA of the second future Trunks with Super Saiyan Rage. This Super Semi-Perfect Cell is going to be an incredible foe for even Android 17, Piccolo, and Gohan to stop. This is also where 17 will let his guard down without realizing the potential of this version of Cell, an uncharacteristic move that will prove to be the downfall of Earth and its heroes. When Super Semi-Perfect Cell absorbs Android 17 after an epic battle, this time it is the most unprecedented power increase in the series. His new final form of perfection will be something that we have never seen, as the power of the gods will be coursing through him. We have seen some fun images of Hyper Cell online, and I feel this version of Cell that has the energy from Boo, more DNA from fighters, as well as vastly stronger Android 17 and 18 will be something that is unrivaled even for the toughest fighters by time they arrive. I don't know what we will call him. Perfect God Cell? One thing is for sure is that even in this new form, he still has one desire left, and that is to attain the Super Dragon Balls. I really like the idea of this arc and the potential for something like this to happen, especially when we involved other timelines that haven't been developed yet. They are just sitting there waiting for a story like this one to be expanded on. Also, when the Perfect God Cell achieves his form, while fighting Goku and Vegeta is interesting, it still isn't his purpose. The supercomputer rewrote his desires and core characteristics. This is a far more advanced Cell in every way who now has knowledge of the timelines, gods, and even greater power that can be attained through the use of the Super Dragon Balls. When Goku and Vegeta do arrive to fight Cell, I would like to see this saga going on where they are defeated the first time but left alive since Cell isn't worried about them, and then escapes into the 5th timeline to gather the Super Dragon Balls to have his wish and bring down the gods. I hope everyone is having an amazing week, and parts of this video could have gone into far greater detail, but that would make the story a bit too long, and besides, I love leaving room for some wild debates about timelines and how strong these new versions of Cell, Super Semi-Perfect, and Perfect God Cell are. As always, I love to hear theories in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, and please subscribe and turn on that notification bell to keep those theories coming.